Hello and welcome back. We're going to do a quick little lesson here in Chapter 9, Lesson 2. This is called Solving Quadratic Equations by using square root symbols. We're using square roots. And so here's our first equation. We have x squared equals 25, and we want to find the value of x that makes that equation true. Well, if we just look at that equation and ask ourselves, what number squared equals 25, I think you'd pretty quickly come up with a value of 5. But I also want to remind you that there's another answer that can go in for x, and that's negative 5. So this is actually going to have two answers, positive 5 and negative 5. Now the way that I'm going to solve this, if I was going to do this on my paper, this is what I would want you to do. I want you to copy down the problem like you see it. And the way to get x to be all by itself is we're going to take the square root of x squared. And if we're going to square root the left side of the equation, we have to square root the right side of the equation. And once we do that, square root of x squared is x. And the square root of 25 is plus and negative 5. It's both those answers. And so there's your final solution. Let me do a second example for you. If it's going to let me erase, we'll have to see how this works. Nope, I don't want to do all that stuff. Well, let's see here. We'll just kind of cross this out. How about this? How about x squared equals 15? If I had an equation like this and needed to take the square root of it, to get x to be by itself, I would square root this side and square root this side. And the square root of x squared is x. And the square root of 15 is, well, now I'm kind of stuck because it's not a perfect square. So in this case, if it's not a perfect square, you can leave it in radical form, which is with a square root sign, and make sure you just acknowledge that there's a positive answer and a negative solution. And so I would rewrite this as positive, negative, or plus minus the square root of 15. Pretty cool. Alright, so that's your final answer. And now now it looks like my eraser tool is going to work, so that's kind of nice. Except it doesn't erase the other thing underneath there still, so I'll cross it out again. Let's do this for one more example. What if I had x squared equals a negative number, like negative 40? Okay. Well, you do the same thing. You take the square root of both sides, but then you get x equaling the square root of negative 40. You have a problem there. You can't take a square root of a negative number, and so this has no real solutions. I think you'll see examples like this several times in your assignment today. Alright, so that's the third option. Now, I want to give you a more complicated problem here as our final example for today. That's going to look something like this. How about, let's see here, I got to think of a good answer. I'm looking at my book right now, stalling for some time. We'll steal this one out of the book. 3x squared minus 48 equals 0. Okay, this is a good example. If you have an equation like this, you want to simplify the equation until you have x squared to be all by itself in one side of the equation. Okay, so I need to get this to be by itself. That means I'm going to get rid of this minus 48. I'm going to get rid of this to multiply by 3 until I have x squared equals a number on the right side of this equation. So x squared equals some number, and then I can take the square root of it. So watch, it goes something like this. Add 48 to this side, add 48 over here. You get 3x squared equals 48. To get x squared to be by itself, I have to divide by 3. So divide this by 3, divide this by 3. I'm a little out of room here, so over here I'm going to write x squared equals, hey, 48 divided by 3 is 16. And then, since I have it, x squared equals 16, I can take the square root of both sides. And I'm left with x equaling 4. But be careful, it's plus and minus 4. Alright, that would be finally your answer. I would like to see that work on your paper, and I hope these few examples help you out tonight. Good luck.